really look at all of these issues, what helped you out in transforming NSE completely? Day one, you were digital in an era when we were not even sure of how digital exchanges will function. How did you take over the mantle, and what helped you transform this exchange?
No, thank you. In some ways, as you rightly said, 3 years back was a tough period for NSE, and I was retiring from BSE, and so sort of when this opportunity came, one of the larger issues in the family uh, was that should I take up this job or not? Because it was very difficult with the controversies, and also my previous colleagues, actually some of them had gone to jail, so you don't end up taking jobs which sort of send you to, especially in a civilian kind of stuff, right? So that's where it was very tough for the family also. Even now, every day my wife asks me in the morning, and she's a doctor, saying, do you really want to do this job? So the fact is, I started NSE in '92, and I was one of the 5 people who signed up. So it was also a little bit of a personal obligation, so to say, to bring it back to life. And so when 3 years back, in fact, literally to the day, I joined in July 22, and naturally you have to worry about the fallout of the bad publicity, but also the organization structure in way the technology was not being robust, and there were apprehensions of the management also not kind of being that sort of that live up to that level of expectations which the government had. And so we had to make changes to the management, to the technology, and it's like a rocket, right? I mean, every day it has to work, and you have to do things behind the scene to make those changes. So it's like changing the heart of a patient while he's running, right? And so whatever you do is not easy in that kind of situation where 6, 7 channels, including you guys, are pouncing on us every moment. Whatever we do, right or wrong, you say it's wrong, right? And so that's where basically we have to be extra careful compared to anyone else. And UPI can go wrong. Yesterday also I was told UPI went down for a couple of hours. April, I think they went down but you don't want NSE to go down. Somehow, if NSE goes down, it's the CEO's neck on the line, right? And so probably NSE's performance over 30 years since it started the technology revolution in India, also the stock market revolution, people have got that expectations, and so in a way we are prisoners of our good performance of the past, right?
So can you tell us how many crores of trade do you conduct every day? Is that 20 crore trades or more?
In a way, on a good day, like June 4, 2024, when the election results came, that day probably we did 2,000 crore orders in a day in 6 hours and 15 minutes. As a comparison, today UPI does around 1,900 crore transactions in a month of 24 hours, and we do in 6 hours 2,000 crore orders and 30 crore trades. And most days of those types, we are 50% of all orders and all trades in the world. And that is true with UPI also. At 1,900 crore transactions a month, UPI is the 50% of all the mobile trades in the world. So in a way, NSE is the first public digital infrastructure. UPI is the most celebrated and most touching sort of public digital infrastructure. But in a way, put together, we being the oldest, we still carry that mantle.
Absolutely, and the flag also flies high in the business environment because of you, Mr. Chauhan. Everybody in this audience has that one question, which I will ask the last. But coming to more important businesses, as far as the numbers are concerned, sir, recent changes by the regulator, good or very good, we don't know. But what has happened is that the mantle of being the world's largest derivative exchange has been taken away from you and India, and it's gone to Brazil. Now, what are the remedial steps that you are taking, and what do you expect the regulator to do?
In a way, being the largest derivatives exchange is a what I call a misstatement. More importantly, the options in India are very low low value options vis-a-vis rest of the world. The rest of the world started with institutions trading those options. And in terms of what gets actually traded is the premium, which is you buy and sell that amount. And there, India is around 20% of the US numbers. So we are not the largest market. It's just that our value per trade was so little. It's like if you're selling 100 grapes vis-a-vis 100 watermelons or 50 watermelons, you might say that 50 watermelons are less in number, but in terms of the kilos, it will be like very different, right? So what matters is actually the value traded, that is premium. And that's where US is the largest market in the world by miles. I mean, we are less than 20%. In fact, one stock I was told last week that one stock Tesla trades more on many days in options premium compared to entire India's derivatives volume in options, right? So effectively, we are not that large, but we were selling grapes and we were saying, no, we were selling 10,000 grapes vis-a-vis your 3 watermelons. And so we have larger number and we wanted to believe that, but it ended up creating a perception that we have created a speculative market, which is in a way telling you that it is very small market compared to US. When we are less than 20%. And now, as you rightly said, Brazil has reduced the contract size. So basically from when you were selling watermelon, you cut it into small pieces like grapes and then sell, you will also be in the same size. So that's where I think we end up basically making the mistakes of thinking that we were the largest. But on the equity side, equity derivatives, we are like second or third largest on literally last 5 years, which
so
is
what
the
do you
trading
intend
volume.
to do to get your crown back from Brazil?
For me, it's not good to have that crown anyway, right? So not to be because in a developing country, neither Brazil is a rich country, we are also not a rich country. So to sort of take pride in a speculative instrument is not a great idea, right?
Okay.
What is important is how did we do capital formation, right? And NSE started in 94 operations, in November 3, 94, Diwali day. Since at that time, India's total market capitalization was around 3,60,000 crore, 3,70,000 crore. Today, it is 450 lakh crore, almost 130, 140 times more, right? For me, that is what makes me much more prouder, that today we are the 4th largest market in the world, capital market in the world, after US, China, and Japan. And there are sort of economic theories which says that poor per capita income countries like India, like $3,000 is not very high from the world standards. But those countries cannot have a good capital markets because poor people don't save. And if they save, they don't trust their brothers also. How somebody sitting in Jorhat or Dibrugarh is putting money into an entrepreneur's business in Salem in Tamil Nadu. She's never going to visit there, right? But she's putting that her hard saved, not only hard earned, but hard saved that 1,000 rupees into that person's business, assuming that somehow we will make money and then small sliver of that money in the form of dividend will come to it. It's such a great leap of faith. And that kind of market has come up in India itself is a miracle. And thanks to NSE's 30 years of automation, reaching out to people, making great corporate governance framework. It's one thing to automate and dazzle you. Other is to ensure that the corporates also behave. And whenever profits come, that are not siphoned off. Because if you see, China is a larger market. It's actually 5-6 times more per capita income, 5-6 times more GDP overall. But still, 30 years, their market has not given returns, even 1 or 2% returns. We are running at, even in dollar terms, 8.5% on CAGR. On a rupee term, I think it's 12-13%, right? So
yes.
India is a very protective market for the small shareholders. And that's why the promoters also now like it. It's tough to follow all SEBI guidelines on corporate governance, but it's a win-win for the investors. And because of that, new companies are able to raise funds and things like that.
Right. When we talk about our vision for 2047, India's economy is likely to move from $4 trillion to $30 trillion. I want to understand from you, where does NSE fit into that? And if you could paint a roadmap for us, how will we see the kind of returns that we've seen thus far from the Nifty last 30 years, from 1,000 to 25,000, over the next 22 years, where do you see the Nifty going forward?
Again, basically, there are two types of channelizing of savings in the economy. Who saves in an economy is the households. and who requires money is the industry. And there are two ways to channelize that savings. One is classic framework of intermediation, which is called banking. You put in the money in bank, and then bank on-lends money to somebody, and that's called intermediation. If that person defaults in the loan, then bank still has to make it good, and that is where your money is safe, and you get a fixed kind of a interest on top of that. The other side is what is called disintermediation, where you putting money directly into the company as form of equity or a debenture, which is giving you fixed interest. But in case the company fails, your money is gone. So that disintermediation is what we do. Banking, the RBI system does the intermediary part or intermediation part. Ours is a disintermediation part. We have intermediaries just to get you in touch with the company. That is the trading system and brokers. But once you buy the shares, they come in your account. That is the relationship between you and company exists, not between anyone else, right? So it's a framework which is called disintermediation in the economics. And there, over last, as I told you, 30 years, 3,70,000 crore was the market cap. Today, 450 lakh crore, 130 times. And in the process, India has grown at around 6.5% average in last 30 years. If you think India is going to grow even at a faster pace, then 25,000 is a 25 times jump. Next 30 years or 22 years, if it's going to go up by that much, then you'll have to multiply it by 25, right? That's how
I think we'll have to add a lot many zeros to what it is now.
Correct.
But coming to the ground reality, Mr. Chauhan, your rival BSC, where you just worked a couple of years ago, and are you getting together and try to understand or work towards again increasing trading volumes or investment volumes or cash volumes on both exchanges? Because ever since SEBI has taken whatever action it deemed fit, there has been a marked fall in volume, and a marked fall in volume essentially means that the pricing does not get better, it actually gets worse. So what are the steps that both exchanges or even NSE is trying to do to get that volume back?
In a way, why volumes are required is, as you rightly said, for getting better pricing, that is the liquidity, right? So that's otherwise, the channelizing of savings is the main function, and the price signaling of assets in the economy, that is the function of the exchange. The trading part is actually it's the mechanism through which you do the channelizing, right? So trading is not the end. It is a means to an end to channelize savings, create wealth, create jobs, help companies raise funds and all. That is basically the end goal, right? Trading is a means to achieve that goal. And in some ways, it's required. But trading gets naturally the profits or the revenues for the exchange, it's brokers. So most of the time, when you meet, the brokers will ask you that volumes have come down.
That question on behalf of your main constituents.
Right. And also the exchanges, because we again get our salaries from that activity. So naturally, there is some interest. But largely, if we don't understand the purpose of the exchange, we'll keep on confusing the volumes with the capital formation, right? That's why the capital formation is the main function. Price signaling of the assets in the economy is the main function. The trading is a mechanism through which you do it. And of course, we need to have the liquid market. We are among the most liquid market in the world today. But STT is a drag. It's called Tobin tax in economics. Every time you trade, you pay a little. And not many countries have this Tobin tax, STD, right? And so that is a drag, especially it's much higher on the notional volumes on the equity side vis-a-vis, say, premium based on the options. And that's where the equities volumes are much lower. Although, in terms of the premium traded, again, it's not very high today, 35,000 crore, 40,000 crore a day, which is not very high vis-a-vis 1 lakh crore of equities getting traded, right?
Yes.
But we could be much more in terms of liquidity if the STT was rationalized. So we are taking up with the government for over last many years, and hopefully, because there is already capital gains tax now, which was not there from 2004 to 2018. And now that there is capital gains tax, there is a need probably to relook at the STT to bring in more liquidity into the market, which will of course help create more capital, raise more capital and things like that.
Right. Lastly, I have to ask you, sir, on the recent Jane Street episode and how 90% of people in F&O are still losing a lot of money. That's a study by SEBI as well. I want to understand what can be done to prevent, a Jane Street 2.0 kind of an episode going forward from here. What role can exchanges also play to protect the small retail investors?
In a way, again, we have kind of got two things mixed up. That Jane Street had basically made a lot of profits, and that came out of the small investors, right? So we have, and so small investors, to protect them, we should stop such things from happening, right? The idea is that small investors should not be in derivatives at all. They should not be trading derivatives, right? And that is what I have been telling since I started derivatives on NSE, in my first stint at NSE. And it's basically for people who understand this business. It's a complex instrument. It's a highly leveraged instrument. And that's why it's better that small investors don't come in. But if they come in, they need to be aware of the pitfalls. And of course, if there is any malpractice, which is what the SEBI's order is all about on Jane Street, then now there are mechanisms through which automatically they can be found once the pattern is established by a regulator saying this is not allowed. Those trades can be easily cancelled automatically by exchanges if it is made into a regulation. So then this will not recur at all, right? So for me, you can still stop the Jane Street type of activity from happening exactly like you can say this is the pattern, stop second leg of the trade. It's doable automatically. But that doesn't mean that the small industries will stop losing money, right?
Right.
And that's why idea is the people who are not aware of the nitty-gritties, who are not having that kind of net worth, they shouldn't be allowed to come into this type of markets.
And Mr. Chauhan, the final answer will have to come from you. This Diwali, are we going to have a IPO dhamaka? Or in this financial year, should we get NSE listed on BSE or even NSE?
And clearly, NSE will not be able to list on itself. It's a regulation. And so it will have to be listing on other exchange. And that's a fact, right? And the way the process works is we are a regulated entity. We are a regulator ourselves, but we are also a regulated entity. We are one of the rare entities which are regulators with a regulator on top of them. And so to do our IPO, we have to first get a no objection certificate from our regulator, which is SEBI. Once they give the no objection certificate, we'll prepare our DRHP. Then we'll again give it to them for scrutiny in another department of SEBI, which will take another time. So usually it takes 3-4 months to make your DRHP. And then 3-4 months for them to go through all the details. And
so 8 महीने तो ये हो गए. And BSE and NSE and SEBI have a common wall in BKC. So 8 months of this work. So maybe this financial year?
Once the NOC comes, NOC has not yet come. So whenever, I mean, आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर, but whenever, and basically मैं आपको खिला सकता हूँ, I have no stocks in NSE nor any other company. Nor am I allowed to have. So I can do this as a part of my job, but we are not benefiting individually or even as employees of NSE. So that much, I think all your viewers should know that it's a job for us and we do it very sincerely. But again, it will be first NOC, after that the DRHP preparation, after that SEBI approval, then the IPO goes live.
H1 FY27.
Again, आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर, but NOC लाके दीजिए.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Ashishkumar Chauhan for that wonderful, session. And I'd like to now call upon stage Mr. Alok Nair, CEO of Business Today, to please present to him a token of our appreciation.